The year is 1914. Europe teeters on the brink of war. In Russia, the Romanov dynasty, rulers for over 300 years, face their own crisis. Tsar Nicholas II, an isolated and autocratic ruler, struggles to hold on to power. His regime, riddled with corruption and inefficiency, is deeply unpopular. The vast majority of Russians endure lives of poverty and hardship. Dissatisfaction with the Tsar and his government simmers. Nicholas, though devoted to his family, lacks the political acumen to navigate these turbulent times. His decision to enter World War I proves disastrous. The Russian army, ill-equipped and poorly led, suffers catastrophic losses. The war exacerbates existing economic problems, leading to food shortages and soaring inflation. The Russian people, burdened by war and deprivation, grow increasingly restless. The stage is set for revolution. The Tsar's authority, already fragile, crumbles further. His German-born wife, Tsarina Alexandra, becomes a target of suspicion and resentment. The Tsarina's reliance on the mystic Grigory Rasputin, rumoured to hold undue influence over her, further undermines the monarchy's credibility. As the war drags on and conditions worsen, the Tsar's hold on power weakens by the day. The Russian Empire, vast and mighty, stands on the precipice of collapse. Russia in the early 20th century is a nation of stark contrasts. Opulence and grandeur characterize the lives of the aristocracy. Meanwhile, millions toil in poverty. The vast majority of Russians are peasants, bound to the land and subject to the whims of their landlords. Industrialization, while underway, lags behind other European powers. Factory workers endure harsh conditions and meager wages. Political repression stifles dissent. The Tsar's secret police, the Okhrana, operate with impunity. They silence critics, break up protests and exile dissidents to Siberia. Political parties are banned, freedom of speech is curtailed, and any opposition to the Tsarist regime is ruthlessly crushed. The Tsar's autocratic rule leaves no room for dissent or reform. World War I proves to be the final straw. The war effort cripples the Russian economy. Millions of men are conscripted, leaving farms and factories short-handed. Food shortages become commonplace and prices skyrocket. The war exposes the Tsar's incompetence and the rot at the heart of the regime. In February 1917, revolution erupts in the streets of Petrograd, formerly St. Petersburg. It begins with bread riots as desperate housewives, unable to feed their families, take to the streets. They are soon joined by factory workers, striking in protest of low wages and appalling working conditions. The protests, fueled by years of pent-up anger and frustration, quickly spiral into a full-blown revolution. The Tsar, isolated at his military headquarters, fails to grasp the gravity of the situation. He orders his troops to quell the unrest, but crucially, many soldiers refuse to fire on their own people. Some even join the protesters, turning their guns on symbols of Tsarist authority. The Tsar's authority collapses and he is forced to abdicate, ending 3 centuries of Romanov rule. In the aftermath of the February Revolution, a provisional government is formed. Composed of liberals and moderate socialists, it promises reforms, including civil liberties and elections for a constituent assembly. However, the provisional government makes a fatal error. It chooses to continue Russia's involvement in World War I, a decision that proves deeply unpopular with the war-weary population. As the provisional government struggles to maintain order, a new threat emerges: the Bolsheviks. Led by the charismatic and ruthless Vladimir Lenin, the Bolsheviks are a radical socialist party. They promise peace, land and bread, a message that resonates powerfully with the Russian people, exhausted by war and hunger. Lenin, returning from exile, seizes the moment. The Bolsheviks, though a minority in the Soviets or workers' councils, are well organized and disciplined. They exploit the provisional government's weakness, portraying them as out of touch and beholden to the interests of the bourgeoisie. In October 1917, or November according to the Western calendar, the Bolsheviks launch a daring coup. Under the cover of darkness, Bolshevik forces seize key strategic points in Petrograd, including the Winter Palace, the seat of the provisional government. The provisional government, caught off guard and lacking popular support, crumbles with barely a fight. The Bolsheviks, against all odds, have seized power. Russia, once a mighty empire, is now in the hands of radical revolutionaries. The world watches in astonishment and trepidation.